Hello and welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Karyappa. We have Jen Abel with us today, the co-founder of Jellyfish that helps early stage SaaS founders with sales and go-to-market. We spoke to Jen sometime last year. It was a B2B sales masterclass that was very popular with our listeners. On this podcast, we're going to be doing something different. Jen's tweets are really interesting, and I always have this urge to understand more. So I thought we could dig a little deeper in a freewheeling conversation. So, again, if you haven't listened to the earlier podcast, you definitely should. It's a great primer for everything you'll hear today. Anyway, here goes. Hey, Jen, welcome back. Great to talk to you again.
It's great to be here.
Okay, we're on to the final theme, which is salespeople.
Sure.
And I have a few questions here as well. I think a lot of founders, especially Indian founders, are from product or tech backgrounds, right? And I think this tweet is particularly relevant for them. The best salespeople I know didn't start their careers in sales.
Yep. Yeah. What that's supposed to be, it's the point I'm trying to make there is there are a lot of salespeople, right, who have been at the sales forces of the world, the IBMs of the world, and the way that they have been taught to sell is no longer relevant today. Right. So the maturity on how you sell SaaS is very different than how you sell on-prem things. So there's a lot of actually bad habits or wrong ways of doing this now. What we have seen is the best salespeople I have worked with either come from an engineering product side and have learned the skill, and more importantly have learned don't have the bad habits or sound like your traditional salesperson. Like they're a bit different. There's all these little nuances that make them special in how they do it. To me, I've found that now listen, I come from a sales background, so I'm basically calling myself out, but the people that I have experienced, and this is why I'm trying to give founders the encouragement to do this. The best salespeople I know didn't start in sales. In fact, they started in engineering, they started on the product side, and they kind of fell in love with helping people solve problems and making that connection. And they're not that force pushed, greedy. I know a lot of people call them Rolex wearing, traditional salespeople.
Yeah, because I think SaaS has completely transformed the way we procure software, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
you can literally switch on and switch off, products today, right? I mean, it isn't like the '90s where you sold a piece of software to someone and then met them after 5 years, right? So it isn't like that. And I think Mark Roberge of HubSpot makes the point, right? I think he's an engineer as well, and he says that salespeople are essentially problem solvers,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly right. And it's not that smile and dial that everyone thinks it is, right? Like I think engineers look at sales and they're like, "Oh, it's a smile and dial. It's just charming your way through it. This is easy. I'm considering this a low value activity because anyone can do it." It's actually the exact opposite. There's a science behind it. There's a true art behind it, especially today with how competitive these markets are getting. Your salespeople also have to be different. They can't be sounding like everyone else, which is why I always kind of am not the biggest fan of sales training because it also commoditizes you to sound like everyone else as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've really had it with all of these plays and cadences that people. I mean, and people try to be really clever. I mean, you don't have to be clever. Actually, you just have to be sincere.
Genuine,
Uh,
that's exactly it. Yeah, I was gonna say it's the easiest way to build trust is to understand this problem better than they do. That's one. And also explain what you don't do. Like the amount of people that will come to me and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to do desk." I'm like, "That's not us. We don't do that." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you do?" And then they're like, "Wait, that's actually what I need." Right? So, guiding people like, you know, bring your A game to every meeting, right? And treat it like this person's going to give feedback to 5 other people about their experience with you.
Hmm. So the best sales hack that I have ever employed is simply to talk to the team before you talk to the person, right? I mean, so just talk to four people on their team, try to understand what their day is like, what do they use, what are their priorities, and so on and so forth. It just helps you to have such an informed conversation with the person actually, right? When you reach out to them, saying that, "Hey, Jen, I spoke to four people on your team. Seems like this and this is their problem, and here's how I solve it, and here's how I've done it
Yeah.
for X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z people." That's it,
You you'd be
right?
great for a product-led growth startup unlocking their sales-led motion. Hopefully, yeah, you get it. That's exactly right.
Because it's simple, really. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
rocket science. You just have, but it is work, of course, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you really have to.
Yeah.
It's not like some kind of an email heading or subject line that you change a few words and
Yeah.
your open rates triple or something like that, right?
Exactly. But that takes a lot of work, so you clearly care about,
Yeah, yeah.
that takes that extra effort, which you don't find often.
Yeah. And literally, of the perhaps the hundreds of emails that I get, I never really have someone who does this, right? I mean, just talk to three people on my team, you'll know what I care about on a daily basis,
Yep,
right?
yep, it's
And what I'll actually listen to. So yeah. Okay. Your customers love to complain. The best salespeople see this as an opportunity and leverage it. This is again kind of counterintuitive for someone who's not been in sales, right? I mean, because typically when you hear a lot of noise, I mean, you kind of think that, oh man, they hate our product, right? But it's actually, I think it's the opposite. I mean, they care that much about the product.
yep, yeah. I mean, you're spot on, and I think this ties into some of the earlier conversation too, but the natural behavior is people love to complain. They do. They find it as a way to connect with someone like, "Oh, how's your day going?" "Oh, my day's pretty rough too." Like, people are pulled by people that can empathize and are going through similar situations. So, pull that out of them. People, again, love to talk about themselves. It's a natural behavior. It's where they're most comfortable talking. Like, don't spend too much time drilling into something they might not be able to speak to confidently. Use that as an insight. But again, in the beginning, when you're trying to build trust, just let them talk, let them learn more about them. And then, more importantly, when they start to complain about something, that's when you know where to dig.
Yeah, exactly. All right. The only thing a salesperson needs to be great at is knowing their customer better than anyone else. Founders test for this. Could you perhaps, I mean, give your 2 cents on how to hire salespeople?
So, the best way to hire salespeople is to poach them. I always say you want to find someone that is at a very similar maturity at the stage of company you're at, right? And especially a founder reaching out to a salesperson, you're warming their heart. It's playing into all of these other things that we teach about founder-led selling, right? Because you're also selling them on joining your company. So take a very similar approach as you would with your customers. Find someone that is at a stage of maturity that is very similar to you. It doesn't have to be a direct competitor, but maybe in a similar space or one step removed. Maybe they're targeting a similar buyer. Maybe they're in a similar, domain, but poach them. The best salespeople, okay, at the early stage, at the 0 to 1 stage, if you can find them, love ambiguity. And this, when they're when the companies are 1 or 2 stages ahead of you, they're probably starting to work themselves out of a job, and the stuff that they love is probably already figured out to some extent. So that is the best. That's where actually we used to find a lot of talent, and that's your best place to find talent. Build a list of 15 companies that are 2 or 3 stages ahead of you. Um, Go in and see who's been there for at least a year and a half to 2 years, and then send them a really thoughtful, personalized notice to why you want to talk to them.
Awesome. All right, Jen, that was fascinating. Thank you again for being on the podcast. Yeah, we should do a follow up sometime.
I would love that. Thank you so much. It was absolute blast to be here again with you, and I hope to do it again soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.